You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hello, People Centric listeners. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Philip Herzog here with the People Centric team. And today we're going to talk about the voices in your head. And it's not just my voice you'll hear today. It'll also be the voice of the one and only Stephanie Anderson. Her voice sounds a little bit like this.
Hello.
Exactly. That was it. Thank you, Stephanie.
Did I do it right?
That was just right.
Okay.
Yes. That was just as much personality as we need. We're going to dial up throughout that. And then you'll hear a third voice, which is the extraordinary Diana Royalty, who sounds a little bit like this.
Hey, y'all.
I've never heard you say y'all before. Where did that come from?
I don't know.
That was an impression of
my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law came out.
Western Diana.
That's it.
Kentucky
Western Diana. Pioneer Diana. That's Diana when she's baking sourdough.
Or a nice bundt cake.
Yes,
you know?
a good bundt cake. That's right. That's right. And there could be a fourth voice we hear today, which is the thought you just had of like, why did Diana say y'all? The fourth voice is your voice. The voices we have in our heads. And a little story as we kick off today. I volunteer through my Rotary at a middle school. Once a month, a bunch of Rotarians. We go to this middle school, so it's a bunch of fifth graders. And I go to the music class. And we talk about a thing called Character Ed. And today was our final session for the year. And I've gotten to know these people pretty well. And our topic was endurance. And a piece of endurance, there's this quote that came into essentially what I chatted about, which is, do you just listen to the voices in your head, or do you talk to the voices in your head in a sense? Do you choose what you're thinking about yourself and what you're thinking in general, or just react to things? How reactive or proactive are those inner thoughts? And I asked all these middle schoolers, and again, think back to your middle school years. I don't know what yours were like. Mine were pretty good, but not a peak life experience overall, right? And it can be a rough time. And I asked them, if you guys are listening to a song on your phones, on the radio, a song comes on that you don't like, what do you do? And they all said, of course, we would change it. And I thought, exactly. Do we do that inside our own minds? When those thoughts and ideas are not helpful, how often we just still keep listening to that music or that station instead of changing it? And so today, as leaders, as great builders of culture, I cannot wait to jump into this with Stephanie and Anna and talk about how we manage those voices in our own head and what that looks like. We do a lot of coaching, training, systems building, and so often this comes into play. So curious, as kind of a kickoff question, Diana and Stephanie, are you, from what we've seen from leaders and people right now in this age of AI and challenges and unexpected changes, how often do leaders listen to the music in their heads and just let that be their soundtrack versus how often do leaders choose their own ideas? How reactive are we versus proactive?
We didn't talk about this beforehand, but I immediately thought, is the leader male or female?
Oh.
That was what I immediately thought. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I just thought
say more. What unpack that for us?
I don't know that I should, but what I immediately thought was, I feel like, and maybe this is just societal things for me, I feel like male leaders are listening to themselves more and just believing their own brand, and female leaders are questioning it a lot more. But maybe that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there is some research to support that. And also, I think it's also I think both men and women will do both of those things depending on their personality. So yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think some of the more healthy leaders we work with talk more in their heads. I think They will question thoughts, and that's what makes them like more innovative and visionary, because they don't believe everything they think. They don't believe everything they feel. They're kind of investigating that versus letting that inner voice just define everything. But I'll also say there's a lot of us and there's a lot of leaders who that inner voice is loud sometimes, and it is hard to distinguish it. And I would say I'm one of those people that like my inner critic is pretty loud most days. I have often been told like, wow, you are really hard on yourself. And I'm and like, this is how everyone thinks, right? And apparently it's not. But I would tell you, like, I was talking with a leader a couple days ago. They were telling me about things that were going on in their company. And they said, throughout probably a 45-minute conversations, multiple times they said, I'm not meeting expectations, or I feel like I'm not meeting expectations. And this is a very, very high performer in this company. And this is a company we worked with for a long time. And I was surprised to hear that, because I've never heard anyone in the company talk about this person that way before. And in fact, I've heard the opposite, that like this person is consistently exceeding expectations. This is a high performer. Like everyone speaks so highly. So we got to a certain point in the conversation when I kind of, paused, and I pointed out that they'd use that phrase, like, I'm not meeting expectations, I feel this way, many times, and just asked them, who said that? Like, that was just a simple question. I was like, you've said that so many times. Who said that? And it was a good pause for them to reflect. And pretty quickly they said, oh, I'm saying that. Like, that is the voice in my head. No one at work has actually said that to me. I'm letting that inner voice, and in that way, I'm listening maybe a little too much to that voice in my head that is the critic. And I think, we're not therapists. And so I encourage her to dig into that more on her own. Just as her business coach, I was like, I can help you see these patterns. I think you probably need to dig into why is your inner critic so loud right now? But just to say I think you just need to recognize that that's your voice is saying it, not other people. And so maybe you need to be a little kinder to yourself and have more realistic expectations for when work will get done and how quickly you can work and how much work you can do at one point in time. Because if you just allow that voice to be the only thing you're listening to, and your inner critic is really loud, then you're never going to feel like you're accomplishing anything. And that does bleed out to the people around you, because if your expectations are astronomical, then no one will meet that. You'll never celebrate anything.
I think that's such sound advice, right? And so wise. Our team often jokes, I say this too, and I think we've on this group talked about this before. So I'll at least say for myself, I'm like, you can tell, you can often find other people who've ever been to a therapist because there's something about how they talk. They say things like that, right? That's the.
Oh, I've absolutely been to a therapist, see one regularly. I think everybody needs therapy, but
Right.
Totally agree. You learn a lot in therapy too, not just about yourself, but even how to work with other people, because then you start seeing maybe some of those same patterns pop up other places.
Right. We always say in our house, we're like, a car goes to the mechanic, my teeth go to the dentist, my brain and heart go to my therapist. And bike rides and good friends and all that too. But, Steph, one of the things too, I think it's Cody Fry. He's one of my, just a musician that my wife and I listen to a lot. He has this one song and there's this lyric, am I in charge of my own mind, or is it in charge of me? And I really do think that's a lot of this question. And there's definitely times where I think we've worked with leaders who, one of the benefits of them working with us is we sometimes challenge what their mind has been telling them or what that story is in their brain. And we'll say, well, why not? Or what about this? And I think that's one thing when we talk about leading from strengths that's so helpful is, we might be really weak at this thing, or this process might be really bad. How can we fix it and make it better? And a lot of times I think people's own mind will say like, it cannot be better. This is all it is. And you're like, no, your team knows a lot. We know a lot. We can jump in. We can help. What could this be? What if there's a great idea? Who has the good idea? What's next? So curious, not to pick on you either, Diana, but as we're talking about this, anything else on this idea of like, are we in charge of our own minds? What are you percolating on?
Stephanie put it so eloquently and wonderfully. I think it's hard when it kind of struck me like when my cheerleader comes out and is rooting for me, that voice is also equally loud. So then I feel like I'm equally right about the thing or whatever, right? So I think there's some push and pull there. Sometimes my critic is very loud and I have to take a step back and be like, what is it trying to tell me? And then sometimes my cheerleader is very loud and then I push that on to other people. So like I believe that I am correct in a situation and my brain is telling me like, you got this, you're doing it, you're moving it forward, you're right. But maybe I should pause in those moments too, right? I think it's both of it's the good voices and the bad voices in your head.
I'm curious then for you guys too. I like the cheerleader and the critic characters. How do you vet? How do you know when the cheerleader or the critic are correct? Because I think in many ways it's good that we have a healthy balance of both, right? I think we often say good communication happens when you know you might be wrong. So that's true if it's the critic you're talking to or the cheerleader. You're not the best, you're not the worst, but how do you vet that? How do we analyze and know how accurate one of those voices are?
Oof. I mean, I think that is hard. For me personally, I will say that is where it has been beneficial to me to have like some really safe, close people. And even if you just have one that is a work person, right? They don't have to know all your secrets and all your traumas and all your problems, but somebody that you can go to say, I feel this way today. Like I'm looking at the work I'm putting out. I'm looking at this and I feel like it's bad. I feel like it's not as good as the rest of the team, or it's not my best. It's far from my best. It's not the quality we would expect. Like, I think for me, it's really important to at least have one person at work. And I think with our team, I have many, which is wonderful, but that's always my thought, to at least have one person who would be honest with me and would say either, no, Stephanie, like you're being way too hard on yourself. This is really good. Perfection doesn't exist. Or like, no, like it's good enough. Like good enough is great sometimes. Or who could be honest with me to say, yeah, you know what? I don't think this was your best. Or there are some errors in this. Or yeah, I think you probably could develop here, but they're going to say that with kindness and empathy and like understanding of like, maybe what are the other things that are happening around me right now that might impact my work? Like I'll be vulnerable for a second. Like my family's been going through some hard stuff the past couple weeks. I know I'm not on my like A+ game at work right now. Like I even showed some documents to our teams this morning that had like super easy errors that everyone was like really nice about. But they were like, did you know that these totals don't add up to 100? And I was like, sure did not. I did that at like 4 o'clock and my brain was tired.
Let the record show it was actually way over 100. You did like extra work. There was more math there than needed.
150%.
Yeah, I'm trying to give 150%, but apparently that's bad math, right? So all that to say, like, I think that's probably my answer of like to have at least one person who would be gentle but honest to tell me, yes, like you should ignore that voice. I think you're being too harsh. Or no, you might be on, but here's what I think you should think about with that. Like, don't beat yourself up about it. Or could be honest to like, if it's the cheerleader voice and I'm not listening it to enough, be like, this is amazing. Like I will also vividly remember one time, this was not at People Centric, but at a previous job, I'd put together a whole presentation, showed it to our board. I got like so little reaction from the board and I'd spent so much time putting this together. And I went back to my desk thinking like, well, I guess it wasn't that good. and was kind of like processing that with my team and came back and said, well, guys, I just didn't get a lot of reactions. And somebody else who was in a different team kind of heard us having this conversation. They're like, no, I saw that. You guys should be celebrating. That was amazing. I think everybody was just processing what you were saying, which is why they didn't respond. But this was good. You should cheer that. You should do those things.
Yeah. And I think I have learned that if either voice is really loud for me, if the cheerleader is being really loud or the critic's being really loud, I probably need to like take a minute and just not listen to the loud, and maybe, to Stephanie's point, have someone that I can go to that's trusted and be like, okay, this is what's screaming at me. So I could be overly confident if the cheerleader is screaming at me, or I could be underconfident if the critic is cheering at me or screaming at me, whichever. And so that just need for someone impartial to get the thoughts out of my head has been really important to me. And I do think that I am a person that thinks in stories and also very much likes black and white. I hate gray, but I know the world exists in worlds of gray. And so it's better for me to go to someone and say, show me the gray, instead of me thinking in this like very absolute black and white thing. And so anytime one voice is dominant or loud, I go to that person and say, help me figure this out. What am I really trying to think here?
There's such power. I think that's a part of it. One of the best ways to know is to get then beyond your own head and beyond your own voice. Have good ideas, have good thoughts, pay attention to your intuition and experience, and bring it to other people then. To your point, like what that looks like. I think an example with me lately, Bethany and I had a strategic planning session we hosted on the drive out, maybe something similar, also a little vulnerable. I just said, hey, here are a couple of things that have been bothering me lately. You know, across the years, I get so excited that I will say a lot of things. And so I said, there's moments I can feel it in the room. There's maybe not the best words to put it to, but I can feel it in the room when I think I have great clarity on a really big strategic idea, and I don't always know how to make it land simple and steady. And just saying it that way, kind of, I think it helped Beth, and she's like, oh yeah, and we've talked about this before, but it was just a different way. So then in the room, I said, I want you in there, please, like remember and make some notes. And I really want that clear feedback, because I keep missing what it is I'm either doing or not doing. And I need your help. So then afterward on the drive back, I think we were at a Burger King or Wendy's or something. Bethany was ordering broccoli, unfortunately. So as she was eating her broccoli from this fast food place, the smell still stuck in my mind as much as her good feedback. Then we talked about it. And it's like, hey, that specific thing you talked about that you said you wanted more clarity on, I actually saw it now. And so these are the thoughts. These are the ideas. So it was welcome from me, and it was really informed. And truly after that, the very next day, it shaped how I speak and how I communicate, even with our team. And instantly right after that too, Bethany was like, hey, I saw that adjustment you made. That's exactly what you asked. That's exactly what you changed. How did it feel? And I thought it landed differently. So there's something about that. Yeah. Getting it out there, pulling it in with people. I wonder, and maybe this could be our rounding out question today, can be kind of sweet and simple. But with this, how does one know, how do you also use the cheerleader or critic as a good signpost to know where you can grow? Because I think that sometimes it feels like a rearview mirror if you're looking back, like, am I doing enough? Am I afraid? As opposed to use that information, use what your mind is telling you to find opportunities to grow, whether that's just for you or your team or your company.
I think that's a tougher one. And I think it's one that like leaders particularly will struggle with, because I think sometimes for me in leadership, the critic voice that I want to listen to is the one that says like, this could be better. Or I think we could be more efficient. I think we could be more effective. I think we could make a bigger impact, right? Like that's sometimes what I think that voice is saying, that maybe drives me towards something futuristic, and where I have to balance it, right? Because like I think I said this earlier, like sometimes good enough is great, right? Not everything can be as best as it could possibly be. Like, that's just not how the world works. And we can't do everything at once. Like, we can't execute all of our current work and make every single product or thing we touch better at the same time. Like, we just can't, unless you have the budget to have 1 million bajillion people working on everything and every single one of them gets it, right? We probably don't have the budget, bandwidth, time, resources to be doing our work and making every single piece of our work better at the same time. But I do think that that's sometimes the critic voice I will listen to a little bit and like ask it more questions. Why do I feel like this could have been better? And was it because I am truly seeing an opportunity and I'm seeing something new for the first time where I'm like, wow, I think we're missing this. I'd like to add this to it. Or is it really more of the critic voice just saying like, the client didn't like it as much as I thought they would like it? And that I can't control, right? Like I can't always control what someone's reaction to my work is. And so that's where I try to evaluate that voice that's telling me like, do more, do better. Have I identified something that could tangibly be changed or is missing or would make a difference, would make our work better, would make it easier for our team to execute, would help me or someone else work more in an area of strength? Or did I just not like that they didn't like it as much as I wanted them to like it? Or did it just not have as much of a result as I was hoping it would? So I don't know if I just answered your question or not, Philip, but that's what I would just say. Like, those are sometimes the things where like I will listen to the inner critic, but I have to ask it more questions. I can't just accept what it's saying because then I don't learn something from it. If I just accept that could have been like, that should be better, you should have done better, I didn't learn anything. I didn't grow at all. But if I ask, okay, what could have been better? Then I can understand, is that a personal growth opportunity? Is that a team, product, service growth opportunity? Or to be honest, is that just my inner critic thinking and wanting to believe that perfection is possible and it's just really not?
Yeah, I like that. And I think mine's similar, right? The critic could say anything from like, that didn't go as well as you wanted it to you're a complete moron, right? Like the critic can say really harsh things. And so I love the idea of like, and I think I do this internally, it's backing up and saying like, what is this critic trying to tell me? What is it really trying to get at? Is the critic trying to tell me that like, I didn't know, I went into that meeting and wasn't as prepared as I should have been, which is why it thinks I'm stupid? Or is the critic saying like, that just didn't go as well as you wanted it to, and here's where you can adjust, right? Like, what is it? What's it trying to teach me? What is my own brain trying to get me to realize? And I think without asking those questions or just like blindly listening to it, you're not going to learn anything. Same with the cheerleader, right? If my cheerleader is like, you nailed that, you're awesome every single time, then I'm not learning anything or growing anything either. I'm just like very comfortable in where I'm at, right? And so I think you do have to ask the question of like, what is critic or cheerleader trying to tell me? You know, is the cheerleader trying to tell me that I'm really good at this thing, or I'm just really comfortable in this situation and maybe I need to push myself out of some comfort zones, right? And so I think it is important to hear what the critic, what your brain, what your own self is trying to tell you.
Yeah. Well, and I want to add on to that too, you know, this is a skill that you have to develop. Like, I'm saying this now and I'm saying this today because I have done some therapy. I've done some inner work. I've learned to evaluate the voice of the critic and the voice of the cheerleader. I've not always naturally done that. So, because I think I can hear almost my past self listening to this podcast a little bit today and being like, well, I don't do that at all. And sometimes the voice of the critic just like wipes me out, man, or eats my lunch, or I do just I let myself beat myself up, or I'm way overconfident when I should not be, which means I'm going to step in it at some point. And so I just want to throw this out there. Like, this is a learned skill that you have to do. And one quick tip I will share that I've learned in this like psychology, neuroscience journey is like, yeah, your first step is just to start identifying it and understanding that like, that's just a thought or that's just a feeling. That's not me. It's not who I am. And then to call it out. So like, I mean, to go back even to the coaching conversation I shared earlier, you know, I shared with her a tip that like my therapist helped me learn several years ago, which was when you hear the voice of the critic saying, you're not meeting expectations, right? Your first question is to acknowledge that that's the voice and saying, wait, who said that? It's almost like you're going to like catch it in the room. Who said that? And you're like, oh, that was me. And then there's a really weird trick that works is then you're going to talk to yourself in the third person. You can just do this in your head, right? Or like you can do it out loud if you're not worried about what people are going to say. But if I hear the voice of the critic in my head go, you're not good enough, you're not meeting expectations, you're so dumb, you let everybody down, I'm going to be like, oh, who said that? And then I'm going to hear my own voice and I'm going to go, oh, silly Stephanie. We said it again. And I know it sounds really dumb. It works. It really works. So there's just my little like neuroscience, neuroplasticity tip. If you're listening to this and you're like, how do you do this? Like, how do you get to this place? And I do not do it perfectly. There's a lot of days where like that inner voice just wins and you have a bad day. But on the good days, I'm able to call it out and then just be like, oh, silly Stephanie. That's just your inner critic talking. Keep moving. Keep going forward. It's not the end of the world.
I like to say silly goose, which now makes sense. All you've said all these things across the room, and I always thought you were talking about me and insulting me, but it turns out
I would just use your name, right? Like usually if I'm going to sass you, I'm just like, ugh, Philip.
It's way more helpful for me if I use someone else's name if I'm talking about myself in a negative way. It's like, oh gosh, you know, I Jonathaned it again. Philip, be more of a Philip, not a Jonathan. You know. Don't do that.
I'm not sure if that's exactly the right interpretation of the neuroscience, but I appreciate the kindness.
If I said be more of a Philip and less of a Diana, everyone knows what we mean.
That's right.
So maybe it's real. There's something to this.
Maybe. But also, don't compare yourself to other people.
No, I'm mostly joking. I think that's sound advice. And, you know, one of the things that I love, just even in your own answers, Stephanie and Diana, you know, Stephanie, you're very much a like whiteboarding futuristic thinker. And your approach was a lot of that too. Like, okay, I'm looking at this information. What does that mean moving forward? And Diana, I love your point of black and white versus gray. I would also add there's more colors than black, white, and gray. But like, okay, where's the color? What color is this? Am I oversimplifying? What am I missing in this? And like going to someone to help see the nuance of it, which again, I just kind of love both of your approaches of those voices and what they mean. And I think for me, when I often think about this, we're saying the same things, but is that voice for me, the older I get, at least, the more I think of it as a signal, which is a lot of what we're saying. Like, hey, I want to capture that what my brain is saying is, I think, how you worded it, Diana. And that's a signal. That doesn't mean it has to be the driver. So what does it mean? I can investigate it or interact with it. And then how do I find something else to know if this is right or not? And one of our values at People Centric is truth. And I think what we've talked about a lot as a team, there's been AI conversations we've had on the podcast, conversations about feedback, how you communicate with people. I think all people are looking for some kind of truth, right? Or like to know really what is accurate. I think people are hungry for that, which is why when you suddenly get some real conversation, it is so helpful. So often I think people have a lot of voices in their head, and it's in talking with us, they're able to have conversations that are more honest than they usually have. And that's their moment where they hit the aha. And I think it's just that whether for whatever reasons, they don't fully flesh it out anywhere else. But then in talking with us or going to coaching or going to therapy or being more clear in their feedback with their team, they start to see that, oh, I can actually really say the thing I'm thinking, and that'll help me get to the bottom of, air quotes, truth, what we really are trying to look at and find. And so the pursuit of truth is not easy, but I think, again, you need to do that with other people and look at those voices as signals to then find the drivers.
Yeah. And when I hear you say that, Philip, I also hear like, you're not alone in this. Like, what we're talking about today and why this is a podcast topic is because all of our brains do this. And I think sometimes we let our brains fool us into thinking that we are the only one who has these negative thoughts and thinks this way. And it's how we all think. It's how our brains process information. We think in terms of story. We have inner voice and like dialogue in our own brains. But it's to your point, Philip, like once you can understand the truth in this is how our brains work, which is the gift and the problem. Then we can do something with it. But yeah, I think I appreciate what you said, Philip, because I think I hear in that of like, you're not alone. You're not alone. All of our brains work this way. This is just not something that we often talk about with other people outside of, to your point, a coaching or therapy conversation, which is why I'm glad this became a podcast topic for us, because we're just going to we're going to open the lid a little bit here and just be like, everyone's brains work this way, but nobody's talking about it.
Such a good point, and I love that you said it because, yeah, even the best leaders or the most positive person you can think of, like we all have these thoughts. Like it's just how you interact with them that makes you do something differently.
The amount of times while on mute even, but I was giving that like pew sitting. Oh yes. That's right. That's it. Holler, holler. I appreciate
I like your pew commentary.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a Presbyterian. We're usually pretty stoic, but there are times that we are moved. And so I appreciate our team in that, again, Steph, to your point, we're able to do this really well with each other. More and more, there are mistakes I make, and faster and faster I bring them to people, and more I see how quickly we jump on them together and solve them and work through them. And I realize, oh, I survived another big mistake. And while I don't make them on purpose, I do start to wonder now, how big of a mistake could I make that would really freak out our team? Like, what would be the mistake that would make it hard for, because it's actually, again, not my motivation. And maybe this is derailing our whole podcast, but I think that was pretty good. It's rarely as bad as you expect it would be. And you can grow a lot from these mistakes, right? Maybe that's a problem in Diana's eyes. When you're so good at jumping in and helping us solve mistakes, then I've started thinking, what would be a mistake too big? I don't know. There probably is one out there. It's probably me clicking a virus link and us losing all our money.
Let's not find out.
Yeah,
let's not find out. But you know what I mean? There's a lot more. We're always more capable, and maybe like one of the thoughts I was thinking that could round us out on this is a little bit of this is choosing to do hard things. I think it's that idea of choosing to do hard things. The more you choose to do a hard thing intentionally, it actually prepares you for the hard things later on that you don't choose, right? Whether that's COVID, federal funding changes, unexpected adjustments to what things cost or how accessible the resources are that you use for your company. Like whatever it is, the more we choose to do some hard things. And that comes from looking at what we're good at and not good at and using those team strengths to get through it. So I hope today's podcast has been encouraging. Your 4 voices, the 3 of us on this podcast, your own voice as well. Always send us ideas, suggestions. What do you think? What are your tips and tricks to know the difference between your brain being in charge versus you being in charge? We hope that you lead well and be well.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.